society. And yippee, because although it took me a long time to get the message that I could be unique and authentic and still go to a fellowship which seemed to have 12 steps of action for me, and 12 traditions which held the fellowship together. And behind the 12 steps is an open and honest, willing attitude, and behind the traditions is recovery, unity and service. So in principle, and the suggestions as they are for 12 steps are pretty darn good for me, because it gives me a framework upon which I can hang my life and whatever is going on for me. So those 12 steps work, and it's the 6th month of the year. So the 6th step, one a month, is all about having our defects of character removed. And of course we can't have them all removed. And they're based on the 7 deadly sins. So I have a little crib sheet here. And I'll just share the sins and virtues, what sins being cured by the virtues, if you like, or putting us in a place of balance. Humility cures pride. Kindness cures envy. Abstinence cures gluttony. Chastity cures lust. Patience cures wrath. Liberality cures greed. And diligence cures sloth. And most alcoholics are not slothful in their outlook when they're drinking, because they're always very active, trying to find more and find situations, people, places and things where it's okay and acceptable to keep on drinking. And even then we're not really satisfied, because we're quite happy to sit alone at home and keep on drinking 24/7 as the malady gets worse and worse and worse. And that is the great problem. And the solution is often a moment of clarity at rock bottom, or a moment of clarity somewhere which says, I cannot get out of this on my own. And that simple admission, I cannot do it on my own, can lead to hope, because there are plenty of solutions out there to help. AA is not the only one, but it works for me, and I'm very pleased to be a part of a fellowship, even if I can't speak for it, because I can't. So I use the literature to keep me on track, and in the 2 books I sort of feature here, there's As Bill Sees It and the Daily Reflections, and I've just been updating my Facebook pages with my profile, which it was sort of yes and no, good and bad, and accepting where things are today in terms of relationships around me and my relationships with other people. And sometimes we may not be quite sure if we're in the right place, but actually we are, because we don't know. It's better not to know quite and be quite certain that you don't know. I don't know what I don't know, because it leaves the door open to all the possibilities of living, and that's not dishonest. It's being honest and truthful about where life is today, and makes me wonder, but it's not hateful or undermining in any way. So for June 28th, this one is quite simple. It talks about the determination of our founders. A year and 6 months later, these 3 had succeeded with 7 more, and that comes from AA's Big Book 159, page 159. If it had not been for the fierce determination of our founders, AA would have likely faded like so many other so-called good causes. I look at the hundreds of meetings weekly in the city where I live, and I know AA is available 24 hours a day. If I had to hang on with nothing but hope and a desire not to drink, experiencing rejection wherever I went, I would have sought the easier, softer way and returned to my previous way of life. And for me, my previous way of life was killing me. And it nearly did a couple of times. And intensive care is not a nice place to be in hospital, even if you're joking and completely in denial about what put you there in the first place. And for As Bill Sees It, it says here, beyond agnosticism. So for me, just before I start reading this, I have a view of higher powers. It's like this. I like Gandhi's understanding, which leaves the door open to all the possibilities, that God is truth, God is love, and God works through people. And that means we experience the higher power around us all the time, because we tap into the wisdom of life and people and the centuries to which, I suppose, we have centuries of civilization which we don't realise we have all around us, and it forms the context. Yeah, I've got 2 minutes for this. Beyond agnosticism. we of agnostic temperament found that as soon as we were able to lay aside prejudice and express even a willingness to believe in a power greater than ourselves, we commenced to get results, even though it was impossible for any of us to fully define or comprehend that power, which is God. And, to actually define it or comprehend that power, which is God. Often, I heard a quote, and I don't know where it comes from, I've tried to look it up, and it goes along the lines of, if we can define God, we deny God. And, if we thought we could define him, we would put ourselves on the same level, I guess. But it goes on to say here, many people soberly assure me that man has no better place in the universe than that of another competing organism, fighting its way through life only to perish in the end. Hearing this, I feel that I still prefer to cling to the so-called illusion of religion, which in my own experience has meaningfully told me something very different. And I guess, in some ways, life is about gut feeling, and the gut feel that we have is often truthful, and it's then our intellect which sort of tears it to pieces. But, myths, legends, wherever it comes from, or the higher power, which has, for me, good conscience is a higher power. If I tap into the higher power of good conscience, I'm onto a place where I can take the wisdom in from other people. So if God is working through other people, I guess that is my simple understanding. So God is love, God is truth. Anyway, to the serenity prayer, which keeps me safe most days, and I meditate using it. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to learn the difference, or know the difference, on a daily basis, and always just for today. Down in London, good morning, and it's June 28th, 2008, and I suppose it's been a difficult few days, actually. Lots of things going on, and new things in my life, and remembrances too. And I think, sometimes my remembrances of times past. This time last year, when my sister's partner was so ill, and he died on July 8th, haunt me a little bit in me and my behaviour in the present day, and the reason being in a relationship, and also having one or two complicated health problems of my own, which are managed on a daily basis, make me feel vulnerable, and also, I suppose, concerned not only for myself but for the people who get involved with me. And maybe I take too much responsibility on my own shoulders for decisions other people will make about whether they want to know me or not. And I think that's true, and the reason why I'm being honest this morning is it's been on my mind for a few days now that I'm in a relationship, and it's been wonderful, and at the same time it's been going really quickly, and that it's like when I pause and think and feel about where will we end up, and the answer is 51% of the time in a good place, and 49% of the time in a difficult situation where I might just expire and then leave a great big hole in lives. But I cannot stop that happening, and I'm starting to realise that I am powerless over those sorts of decisions. How people know me, and if I'm truthful with them, open and honest as much as I can be, then I have a better chance of informing them whether to be involved or not, rather than make the decision for them, and for me, not to be involved at all. And it's been bothering me greatly. And somebody I know from the rooms who saw me across a crowded meeting of AA last night emailed me and said, "Are you all right?" And actually, no, I wasn't all right, and I was in a calamitous frame of mind, wanting to make sure I protected other people from what might happen to me. And again, I realise I'm powerless over that. And maybe all I need to do is raise the issue and make it very clear. This is how I've been feeling. And when I do that, it's the way it is. And then people make up their own minds. So I'm learning a lot in a very short space of time about what may be and may be not. and that it's not down to me to guide everybody away from me, or to not engage in life because I have complaints which won't go away. So I am feeling a bit tormented, and I guess what I do when I feel tormented is go to a fellowship meeting of AA, because somewhere there will be some experience, strength and hope which is shared, which helps me understand what is going on. And I went to a different meeting last night, one at the Boltons, where I've been before on many occasions on a Friday night, and it's often called Glamour Night, and it seems to have got more practical nights actually. It used to be where people put on their posh frocks ready to go out and do something else, and last night it was very, very down to earth and very practical, and people speaking from the heart about what was going on for them. And I needed to sit there and listen, and to my left I had a friend who I've got to know quite well, and to my right and one chair forward, another friend who knows me quite well as well. And they saw both gentlemen of extreme age like me, or much older actually, who have been around the block and still feel sore with their feet and their heads, because we're all prone to being fragile. And the fear is sometimes, often, that we may expire and leave people in a place of torment. And I guess that's what really occurred to me in this last few days, really. Life going very quickly. Maybe not giving myself enough time to assimilate what's been going on. And also knowing that it's a very, very difficult time of year. And my remembrances of last year at this time were dreadful. And not being able to cope too well, because when people are dying and there's no way to stop it, what do? We do our very best, our utmost in the moments that are there, and then we try and deal with life afterwards, and we do our best. Anyway, this is all about AA and fellowship and moving along. So why do I go to fellowship meetings? This is the reason why. I go on a daily basis if I can get there. It says in the preamble, Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. And that also applies to me. You know, I keep on forgetting it. I don't do these videos just for the sheer hell of it. They help me sort my life out. It's my way of reflecting on the day and meditating, maybe. Being an extrovert, this is my way. Anyway, so what do I know? I cannot make decisions for other people. I am powerless over people, places and things, and what it means is I can make good choices to be involved or not be involved in what's going on around me, and the invitations to be involved and to be included are very, very valuable, and often what I would like, because I'm a human being who likes company, likes to love and likes to be loved, and have something useful to do, as Freud said. So I feel better right now. I've had a phone call or talked to significant others this morning already, and I feel better in my own mind that we can resolve issues one way or another. It's not about resolving to a conclusion. It's about resolving how we work at living and sharing and including and not excluding. And my old behaviour is to caretake people and exclude them from the pains I feel. And what I'm finding is I need to include people and share my pain when it's happening, so that I may find a better path to recovery on a daily basis. So a lot in me has been about self-protection, but also protecting others when in fact they need no protection, especially from me. So I don't know how much of the readings I can do now. Daily reflections for the 28th. It says here, the determination of our founders. A year and 6 months later, these three had succeeded with 7 more, and goes on to say, if it had not been for the fierce determination of our founders, AA would have quickly faded like so many other so-called good causes. I looked at the hundreds of meetings weekly in the city where I live, and I know AA is available 24 hours a day, If I had had to hang on with nothing but hope and a desire not to drink, experiencing rejection wherever I went, I would have sought the easier, softer way and returned to my previous way of life. And the answer is, when we return to that precarious way of life, we are certain to die sooner than later. And without AA, where would I be? There's 700 meetings in London on a weekly basis, or thereabouts. Some are very good, some are not so good. Anyway, as Bill sees it, I read these out linearly, so they don't actually correspond to maybe something I've said from the daily reading book. Page 183, A Viewer with Alarm. I went through several fruitless years in a state called viewing with alarm for the good of the movement. This is Bill talking about Bill Wilson, the co-founder. I thought it was up to me to be always correcting solutions. Seldom had anybody been able to tell me what I ought to do, and nobody ever succeeded in effectively telling me what I must do. I had to learn the hard way out of my own experience. When setting out to check others, I found myself often motivated by fear of what they were doing, self-righteousness, and even downright intolerance. Consequently, I seldom succeeded in correcting anything. I just raised barriers of resentment that cut off any suggestion, example, understanding, or love. It goes on to say, AAs often say, our leaders do not drive by mandate, they lead by example. If we would favourably affect others, we ourselves need to practice what we preach, and forget the preaching too, that the quiet good example speaks for itself. See, now sometimes things do gel together, and we do need to hear a bit of wisdom. That is, we take a lead for ourselves, we don't lead others, we need not protect them. We are powerless over people, places and things, and if we're lucky we get our choices back in life, and that's a day at a time. Don in London, hello. My video is all about recovery from addiction to either substance or behaviour. My addictive substance, alcohol, my behaviour equally addictive around people, places and things. So these days, sober one day at a time, and that's what seems to work. Live in the day, live in the moment, find my spiritual connection to living in the moment of now. Spiritual life is real life. Everything is spiritual. So all those 35 years of drinking were spiritual, and what follows on, one day at a time, is also spiritual. I suppose really the question is, for anyone, what quality of spiritual do we enjoy best? And only a person can make up their own mind what is best for them. So I share about what helped me into recovery and to be sober one day at a time, with the help and aid of fellowship. That fellowship is AA. And today I just want to read from this book, 12 Steps and 12 Traditions, which is the backbone, I guess, of much of what the fellowship is about. 12 steps so we can live well, open, honest and willing. And the 12 traditions in fellowship, unity, service and recovery. Sounds like the dog downstairs is not having a good time. So what is AA? I just share off the preamble, which is on this little card, which explains to anyone what the fellowship is there to do, to include people around being sober one day at a time and living a spiritual life, knowing what our feelings are and not drinking. So what is AA? Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution. Does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. So it's all about being included. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. And what you make of your life with the help of fellowship and the 12 steps and the 12 traditions and the big book of AA And how you come to live life is as it works for you as an individual, because we are all unique and authentic on our life path as we are. So we try not to tell each other what to do. But there are some principles involved, and the principles in the 12 steps and 12 traditions help us to find a sober life. And June, for me, is all about step 6. So I share the step and also a commentary about how it works for me. And step 6, it says here, we were ready, or rather were entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. So what are defects, and what are assets, or what are our liabilities and what are our assets? Well, it probably boils down to, in the biblical sense, the seven deadly sins, and also the 7 virtues, the opposite. And if you look on the internet, you'll find many a version, and here's just a version which I picked up quite quickly. Right, so pride is excessive belief in one's own abilities that interferes with the individual's recognition of the grace of God. It has been called the sin from which all others arise. Pride is also known as vanity. So pride is the first deadly sin, or defect. Envy is the desire for others' traits, status, abilities, or situation. Gluttony, the third one, is an inordinate desire to consume more than that which one requires. Lust is an inordinate craving for the pleasures of the body. Anger is manifested in the individual who spurns love and opts instead for fury. It is also known as wrath or wrath. Sloth is the avoidance of physical or spiritual work. And the opposite, if you like, the 7 contrary virtues: humility, kindness, abstinence, chastity, patience, liberality, diligence. And the contrary virtues were derived from the battle for the poem, an epic poem written by Prudentius circa 410 AD, an epic poem written. Practicing these virtues is alleged to protect one against temptation toward the 7 deadly sins: humility against pride, kindness against envy, abstinence against gluttony, chastity against lust, patience against anger, liberality against greed, and diligence against sloth. So, very black and white. You're either one or the other. But in real life, what are we? We're all of those things at different times in our lives. And although the 7 deadly sins and the 7 virtues may sound quite old-fashioned, we all have some sort of traits around those issues. And the 12 steps of the fellowship try to address this in the way I understand it, in step 6 and step 7. So step 6 is all about my defects of character, and step 7 is all about my shortcomings. So my defects of character are the sins, and my shortcomings are not enough of the virtues, short on virtue. But in there somewhere is modern life, and life as it is today, and the changing values of society. But around that is a personal code. So these 12 steps, principles, these 12 steps are about developing our own personal code of living. And how we do that is entirely up to us. No one's going to stop us doing it another way. And if they were trying to stop us, our sins, or deadly sins of pride, would get in the way. We get stubborn and defiant often, or I did. So, step 6 in the fellowship program reads as this, with a bit of commentary from me. And don't forget, this is just a personal understanding. It's your understanding in the end which counts. And where do you get your personal understanding? From life. And also listening to the many voices in society, and probably in the fellowship of AA, if you stick around long enough. So, we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. This is the step that separates the men from the boys, or the women from the girls. So declares a well-loved clergyman who happens to be one of AA's greatest friends. He goes on to explain that any person capable of enough willingness and honesty to try repeatedly, step 6, yes. He goes on to explain that any person capable of enough willingness and honesty to try repeatedly, step 6, on all his faults, without any reservations whatever, has indeed come a long way spiritually, and is therefore entitled to be called a man who is sincerely trying to grow in the image and likeness of his own Creator. And again, don't get hung up on Creator. It's the God of your understanding, or a power greater than you, which counts in this. The common good often is used or utilised. Of course, the often disputed question of whether God can and will, under certain conditions, remove defects of character will be answered with a prompt affirmative by almost any AA member. To him, this proposition will be no theory at all. It will be just about the largest fact in his life. He will usually offer his proof in a statement like this. Sure, I was beaten, absolutely licked. My own willpower just wouldn't work on alcohol. Change of scene, the best efforts of family, friends, doctors and clergymen got no place with my alcoholism. I simply couldn't stop drinking, and no human being could seem to do the job for me. But when I became willing to clean house, that's step 4, and then asked a higher power, God as I understand him, to give me release, my obsessions to drink vanished. It was lifted right out of me. Well, it didn't quite work that way, because I was a stubborn son of a gun, and I thought I knew better for a long time. But when I got to fellowship, I found there were a lot of people who had given up on pride and said self-will will run riot, and willpower will fail. And it was right. So I listened to the many voices. If God works through people, the wisdom came quick and easy for me. So I stuck around for quite a while, shivering with fear, another one of my defects, until I could keep on listening to what was working for other people, and then I started to learn. In AA meetings all over the world, statements just like this are heard daily. It is plain for everybody to see that each sober AA member has been granted a release from this